Do you like my friend? My spooky friend? I finally got something creepy for Halloween. You can just say that. She loves Junji Ito, as do I, which I will get to. I've been having a lot of fun reading recently. During lockdown, it's been a really nice use of my time, and it's something that I can do that doesn't involve going outside. So instead of seeing real people, spend my time with pretend ones. Seriously though, it's been a really enjoyable thing and it's been lovely to get excited about books again. And obviously this channel is about going places and seeing things. I'm aware that there is part 2 of that Japan video that I haven't finished of Hakone, but instead of doing that, I'm doing this. So I kind of realised it's October, and by some weird coincidence, I had read books that were weirdly perfect for the month. This was some strange coincidence. And because I realised that they were fitting for the month, I thought I would tell you about those books. Number 1 is one I actually started reading, or rereading I should say, a couple months ago. It's been on the back burner, it's been my secondary book for a little while. I just really wanted to reread it again. But that also happened to fall into October. It will probably last beyond October because it's quite a chunky book. And that is House of Leaves. If you're not familiar, it's a really strange book. Mostly because of the format. So you might have heard of this book mostly because it has really strange formatting on some pages. So you can have pages like this. So you're reading the main passage, then you've got sections here that are actually reflected on the other page. Then here you've got a list of, I think it's places and names. And then you will have pages like this one that are just single words. My husband Jack likes to make fun of this book, and he's not as quick of a reader and not as much of a reader as I am, and he goes, "Oh, I can't read that." Can you, Jack? Can you? Like I said, it's just a joke, but I get very defensive over this book. Because there are also very chunky pages like this. But that's just the format. So why does it fit into October and Halloween? Well, the concept of the book is there's sort of 2 stories going on. There is the story told about a house. And then the secondary story is the main character who is reading about this, but then slowly falling into despair and fear, and is sort of losing it because of what he's reading. You kind of realise every so often, I'm reading this though. Am I going to devolve into fear? And I think that's on purpose. It's every so often realising that you're in his shoes, and this could happen to you. But just, even if you took out all of this other bits, other elements, I really love simple but out there concepts. So what sold this to me, or how I sell it to other people, is that the thing that is wrong with this house, so this family moves into a new house, and for some reason, the dad of the family decides to measure the house And he thinks he's got something wrong because the inside is about an inch or half an inch longer than the outside. Obviously, this is impossible, but he becomes obsessed with this and starts measuring it. Then all of a sudden, a door appears in the bedroom, I think, where there wasn't one before. But then that vanishes, and then another door opens in the living room. And then eventually they open the door, and there is a hallway. But this door is on a part of the house that leads outside. So this is an impossible space that cannot exist. Like they describe the children running through where that space should be in the garden outside. And then it evolves from there, and then the space gets bigger, and it becomes this labyrinth, and ideas like that really draw me into a story. Like, I love concepts like that in impossible spaces. It really sort of gets my mind going. It sort of reminds me of another book that I read years ago where there's this amazing scene where someone has a map of the world and they unfold it so that there's more worlds than we know there is. And I loved this concept. It's just a shame that the rest of the book was impossible to read. It is, if you know, it's called Vellum, and I have held on to this book because I like to show it to people to say how weird, and I couldn't finish it. I might challenge myself to reread it at some point. Anyway, that was a bit of a tangent. So I think it fits into October because there is this fear element. There's this creature that sort of bleeds into both sides. There's a creature that is prowling and going after the characters of the house, but is also in the sort of like periphery of the other guy. So there is definitely horror elements. It's not going to be for everyone. It's, like I said, the formatting is going to put people off. And even beyond that, I think there's sections that are quite dense. And the other thing I haven't mentioned is that the way the house section is written, it's not written like a traditional story. The concept is that there's this videotape or this film of these events, and someone has written a textbook about the video. So even that, it's just weirdness upon weirdness. And either that's going to really appeal to you or it's not. But I will say that I actually forgot that's how the house was explained. I just remembered the events, and I think you'll get pulled into it like that anyway. I think the fact it reads like a textbook at times, I wouldn't worry too much. I'd try it at least. So that's House of Leaves. The other book I read, again, like I said, accidental Halloween pick. And it's a Halloween pick because there's lots of skeletons. Like a lot. This is Gideon the Ninth. I read the ebook, so I will put the cover here. The first thing I will say is that I would recommend not reading the ebook, because at the front is a dramatis personae. I don't know if that's how you say it. I've only read that phrase. And what I didn't realise until I finished the book is that at the back there's a list of terms and also some extra bits about the other characters. And I think this book would benefit massively from letting you flick between these two things. Especially the characters, because the author has written, so the main two characters, they have their first name, their second name, and they also like to use nicknames with each other. So at the very beginning especially, it's Is she Harrow? Is Gideon also Nav? I, so it's handy to have that at the front to check. And on top of that, there's also, you end up in a situation where there's a lot of characters in one building together. And it's quite handy to just check who's who, because it can get quite confusing. I'm glad it's not me. I've seen other people commenting that the way it's written can be quite confusing. But don't let it put you off. Gideon the Ninth is really funny. Gideon is such a great character. I saw someone say it was written like fan fiction, which I think is maybe a little bit unfair or maybe a bit wrong. But I think the point they're making is that it's the type of character they've only really seen in fan fiction, where writers are having a little bit more fun. So you have this setting that is sci-fi fantasy. These houses are situated on different planets. So there's spaceships, but they're all necromancers, so there's also magic. And I like how the magic works with the sci-fi. So they need death or life energy to do stuff, but it doesn't work in space because no one dies, or not many people die in space. Where was I going with that? So you have this otherworldly concept, but you also have this character, or characters, that just have a very modern way of speaking. Call people motherfuckers. Call people dicks. They insult each other. And it really works. It's your world. People can use whatever language they want, and it adds to the comedy. The story itself is probably like I'm trying to think. It's a murder mystery mixed with, like, not a quest, like a challenge. These people are dumped into a place and they're challenged to figure something out, but they're sort of given no help unless they ask for it. And actually, only a few people think to ask for help. But this murder mystery element comes into it, so it's also a little bit Agatha Christie. So you have this really bizarre world, but I think the concept and the main plot is familiar enough that you'll stick with it, and it's not too out there and crazy. And it's just funny. If you want a Halloween book that's not horror and not scary, it just has skeletons in it, Gideon the Ninth. It's great. Also love having a main character that is a lesbian. It just doesn't happen enough. And not in a overly dramatic way. It's just there. She has the hots for various people. And it's great. I love it. More gay main characters in fantasy, please. Thank you. Next on the list is manga. That's probably it for books. I can't read that many books in October. I've already moved on to something else that isn't horror or Halloween related. But manga-wise, if I'm quick enough editing this, hopefully this deal is still going. If you like horror manga, Humble Bundle are doing a offer at the moment. There's horror manga, and for about $18-19 you can get 100 plus volumes of manga. It's insane. There's a couple of Junji Ito ones that I'd not read before. I've not read them yet. There's a ton of different series. If you like your horror manga, you're going to find something in here. And the one that I read was Until Your Bones Rot. The easiest way to describe this is it's I Know What You Did Last Summer, but it's a manga. I've not seen I Know What You Did Last... So I don't know how that goes. But the manga is about these 5 friends who 5 years ago, when they were pretty young children, killed somebody. And every year, on the day of the festival, they will disappear into the woods, uncover the body, sit around it, remake a pact to each other to keep it secret, and then they will bury it again and on their way. And it's kind of interesting because they're reaching a point where they're getting older and they're questioning if they even need to do this anymore. So they're just at a point in their lives where they're ready to move on. But then they can't. Because, true, I know what you did last summer style. Someone calls them and says, I know what you're doing. And this puts them in a bind. The person on the phone gets them to do something really horrible. Oh, and by the way, the guy on the phone has stolen the bones, which means they have the evidence of their crimes. So they're really stuck, they have to listen to them. And that kind of kickstarts this whole story there's a bit of a mystery and there's lots of twists. You really learn a lot about the characters through it. I really appreciated how it used these really horrible situations to kind of teach you something about these characters. Plenty of twists. Plenty of gore. If you're not into your gore, I'd maybe stay away. But if you can handle it, I lasted through it in 2 days. It's pretty rewarding. I would say I have one minor gripe about the very end. I don't believe certain characters would behave that way. Or at least I don't see normal people behaving that way, but it's a small gripe. I think it tells a really good... It's really good at unraveling these mysteries. I'd give it a shot. Last on the list, another reread. If we're talking horror manga, some Junji Ito has to be in here, obviously. If you know manga, I'd be very surprised if you don't know Junji Ito. Or at least you might not recognize the name, but you will have, if you're on the internet in general, you will have come across some visual, one of his short mangas. He's the guy who did the, I can't remember what it's called, but the one where holes start appearing in a mountainside and people find ones that fit them and then they disappear. That's Junji Ito. So I'm reading his Uzumaki. I think it's his best if we're talking collected works, if you're talking about a volume and not simple short stories. I think this work as a whole is his best. There's a lot of individual stories told within this about a town that is cursed by the spiral. But it also tells a whole story. There is actually an ending to it. There's characters that carry on through the whole thing who are aware of what the curse is. So it kind of manages to do both. It tells an overall story, but manages to also have these smaller sections. And they are all related to the spiral. And I think what's really great about it is that Junji Ito manages to make you afraid of something that is very simple and basic. Who is afraid of a shape like a spiral unless you have some weird phobia? A spiral is just a shape, and yet as you're reading this, when you see anything vaguely spiral shaped, you go, oh no, oh shit, what is going to happen now? And I love that horror should be able to have that power to make you scared of something that you weren't before. Take, for example, Hereditary, which I haven't actually finished. It got a little bit much for me. But there's a thing where if you hear a click, then that freaks you out. I think sounds are actually quite a well-used tool in horror. But spirals, man. Look out for the spirals. So yeah, I'm rereading this because it's a manga, so I can get through it pretty quickly, and it is one of my favourites. So I highly recommend it. If you've not read Junji Ito before, I would say this is a good place to start, but that will mean that the other Junji Itos maybe might not live up to it, which is what I've sort of had. But it's a really good time. Really good for Halloween, definitely. And my plan for Halloween, in fact, is because she reminded me of like J-horror stuff, I'm gonna hang her somewhere and then put some Junji Ito art in the window to freak people out. That might be a bit too much for the kids, or it might go over their heads, but I'll have fun. Well, this is a bit different. I hope you enjoyed it. I might come back again, because like I said, I'm really enjoying my books right now. I might do something longer on House of Leaves when it's finished, maybe? Don't know. I've started the Stormlight Archive, which I'm really enjoying. I've got the new Susanna Clarke book. So yeah, I'm really enjoying books at the moment, and I might just turn this into a book channel now. Hooray! Happy Halloween, everyone. See you later.